School of Business, where I'm on the faculty. For those of you who haven't heard about that grand institution, consolidation of two schools. Atlanta University, the oldest black graduate school in the nation, founded in 1865. 4 years later, Clark College, founded in 1869. You come to my office, 318 Wright Hall, and you take 400 steps to your left, you will find yourself at 350 Spelman Lane, founded in 1881. You take 300 steps to your right, and you will find yourself at Morehouse College, founded in 1867 in the basement of a Baptist church in Augusta, Georgia. But I can say with all pride, sincerity, and humility, down our halls walk some of the sharpest business students in the country. Everybody on that campus knows my classroom at that school. Why? Because I got a sign on my door. That sign reads, if you don't want to work hard, you don't belong here. And if you don't want to lead under no circumstances, walk through my door. And then if you have the guts, the courage, the temerity, actually step into my classroom, you take 5 steps and you turn to your right. And there's a sign on that wall that was given to me by Rachel Robinson. Dr. Kimbro, who in the world is Rachel Robinson? Jackie Robinson's widow. And there I am with Jackie Robinson's widow, Rachel Robinson, and I said, Miss Robinson, what was it like being married to the man who broke the color barrier in baseball? And she said, well, Jack only, he only lived by one rule. And I said, what was that rule? Excellence is the norm, not the exception. So what's on that wall? It says mediocrity is not the standard in this class. Now, you can be mediocre someplace else, but damn it, you can't be mediocre here. Why? Because the marketplace wants excellence. I don't care whether you're in China, I don't care whether you're in the Pacific Rim, and I've been all over the world. I don't care. Come with me to Reykjavik, Iceland. Last summer, I was in Australia. And we all operate off the same sheet of music. We all sit on that same footstool, that 3-legged footstool. One of the legs is what? Continue personal, professional development. You hear what I said? Now see, I got a problem. I'm up here talking, and I don't see any hands moving. I don't see anybody taking notes. I got a problem with that.
I'm taking notes. Me too.
Give me some dap, girl. Continuous personal, professional development. If you don't read, if you don't study, if you don't grow, if you don't develop, if you don't go to the seminars, if you don't go to the conferences, if you don't take in that information, somebody out there in the universe will. And the day you meet that other person, you lose. You lose. We live in a capitalistic society, and capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism means everything is for sale. You take the Latin derivative of the word capitalism, C-A-P-I-T-A-L-I-S-M. The Latin derivative is caput, C-A-P-U-T. What does it mean in Latin? It means head. What's the one thing you must use in order to survive in a free and open society?
Your head.
You must use your head. We don't live in a society that is divided between rich versus poor, black versus white, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, male versus female. No. But you do live in a society that's divided between dreamer versus non-dreamer. Continuous personal, professional development. Now, I spent my adult life tracking down black millionaires. That's all I've done, examining wealth over the course of my life. And the quickest way, in order for you to become wealthy, and it's not, I don't tell everybody you got to be a millionaire. I don't say you got to be an entrepreneur. I'm not into that. But what I found about millionaires, number one, these are folks with 7-figure incomes. The average black millionaire has a net worth of $4 million. But what people don't understand is the individual that you got to become first before you generate $1 million. And it all starts with information. It all starts with information. You don't go to school one period of your life. You're in school every day of your life. Life is lesson. So if you don't read, if you don't study, if you don't grow, learn to fail gracefully. The second leg is wealth creation. When Martin Luther King led the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, there were only 5 black millionaires in the United States. And I was privy to interview 3 of the 5, and I shared their story in my first book, Thinking Grow Richer, Black Choice. Now you fast forward the videotape more than 50 years, and you've got 35,000 black millionaires, and you've got 5 black billionaires in the United States. When Martin Luther King sat at the feet of at the Lincoln Memorial on that August 28, 1963 day. You listen to me, Clemson. When he gave his I Have a Dream speech, August 28, 1963, less than 1 out of 20 African Americans were on welfare. You know what it is today? 1 out of 5. 85% of your race earns less than $250,000 a year. We are worse off economically today than we were 35 years ago. It is wealth creation. How did I get the idea for the wealth choice? There I am with Andy Young, Ambassador Andy Young. Here is a man who walked side by side, arm in arm with Martin Luther King. And he told me, he said, you know, it never was about sitting in the front of the bus. Do you hear what this man said? He was right there. And he says the goal was not to sit in the front of the bus. And I said, well, that's one email, that's one memo we did not receive. We did not receive wealth creation. Now, what do we know? There's 175, 180 countries that belong to the United Nations. But when you look in terms of GDP and GNP, and when you look at wealth, Black America, you are number 16. So the problem isn't wealth. The problem is what you do with your money. That's the problem. So organize your capital. Every year, $1.1 trillion goes out of our hands with absolutely nothing to show for it. And then last but not least, the final leg is entrepreneurship. All I'm asking, I'm not telling you to be an entrepreneur, but I'm saying at least consider it as an option. And I don't care whether you're an entrepreneur or not. You can be a corporate climber, but you better think like an entrepreneur. The worst mistake you will ever make is to think that somebody else signs your paycheck. I don't care if you're working for IBM or Xerox or whoever. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the top wealth creators in this country, what in the world was Phil Knight of Nike shoes doing when he got the idea for Nike? He was an auditor for PricewaterhouseCoopers. What in the world was Howard Schultz of Starbucks doing when he got the idea for Starbucks? He was selling Xerox office equipment on the streets of New York. What the hell was Reid Hoffman doing when he got the idea for LinkedIn? And you better be on LinkedIn, otherwise you're going to be linked out. It's all about connecting. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. And why is it so important that you're here tonight, seated in these chairs? Not to hear me, not to hobnob with Dr. Frankie. It's to meet the individual seated across from you, behind you, around you. That's the only way that you're going to reach your goals and objectives. The average individual in our society knows 270 other people. That's how many folks will show up to your funeral if the weather is clear. So you got to tap into that network. You got to tap into those individuals. So I don't care if you're a corporate climber, you have got to think, like I said, the worst mistake is to believe that somebody else signs your paycheck. You are an individual profit center. So let's dig in. People ask me all the time, how in the world did you get your name on Napoleon Hill's book? Napoleon Hill, by far America's most prolific self-help writer. Here is a white gentleman born in Wise County, Virginia, wrote 16 books in his lifetime. His all-time classic, Law of Success, got this country out of its first depression. But the book that he is known for, Think and Grow Rich, published in 1937, baby doll, we are talking more than 15 million copies in print. How in the world did I get in the mix? Well, there I am, going around the country, interviewing successful African Americans for a book, going to be the first self-help book for Black America. What Makes the Great Greater? That was the book that I was working on at the time. And I just got back from New York. I had interviewed Earl Graves, the publisher of Black Enterprise magazine. I get back to my home, go up in my bedroom, and back then we had answering machines. I see the little red button go off, I hit it, and who's on that answering machine? W. Clement Stone. He says to me, young man, we heard about you. When can you come to Chicago? I would like to meet you. And we're gonna find out if the clicker works, my brother. Hey, the clicker works. There he is right there, W. Clement Stone on the left, Napoleon Hill on the right. Less than 2 weeks later, me and my lovely wife, we fly up to Chicago, and I go to his palatial office, outskirts of Chicago. W. Clement Stone, as you may or may not know, was one of the wealthiest in the world. Made his money in combined life insurance. He's seated behind a big mahogany desk, bright flowered polka dot bow tie, smoking one of his signature Havana cigars, surrounded by a sea of lieutenants. He says to me, young man, you're not the first person to go around this country interviewing successful African Americans. And I said, I'm not? And he says, no. He says, Napoleon Hill was doing this at the time of his death. He reached across his credenza, pulled out the last 100 written pages of Napoleon Hill. That's right, Napoleon Hill, at the time of his death, was attempting to write a black version of his all-time classic, Think and Grow Rich. He got 100 pages in the manuscript, died of a stroke. He was 87 years old. Mr. Stone said to me, we got a proposition based on what we see and hear. We got a proposition for you. And I said, what is that, Mr. Stone? We want you to finish, complete, and update this book. And I said, what book? He said, those 100 pages that's in your lap. And I said, I can't. He said, why not? Well, I'm working on a book of my own. He said, if you have any sense, push your book aside and finish this. Then I said, well, I'll do it under one condition. He says, what is that? I said, if you pay me. Mrs. Stone, I'm dead broke. I had to borrow money for the plane ticket, man. I can't find a quarter with a roadmap. I wouldn't be standing here right now if it weren't for my wife. For 7 years, I lived off her earnings as an accountant. That was it for 7 years. But I got some good news and bad news. What does the Bible say? The Bible says it came to pass, not it came to stay. In other words, whatever you got to go through, go through it. Go through it. What did Bishop T.D. Jakes tell me? He said, tears will get you sympathy, but hard work and sweat, well, that'll get you what you want. That will get you what you want. Well, I finished the book. I'm blessed. Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice. You've got, what, 1 million copies out there in the universe. And I guess that's a book that I will always be known for. But Dr. Frankie wanted me to come and speak about my new book. It's been out for a year, #1 business book in Black America. It's called The Wealth Choice. It is a 7-year study of black millionaires. When Tom Stanley wrote The Millionaire Next Door, he used 3 primary sources of data. He used Census Bureau, IRS, and U.S. Trust Survey. His 2nd year into the research, he contacts the Census Bureau, and the Census Bureau not only told him how many white millionaires in the United States, they gave him zip codes. So Stanley went back, wrote a 247-question survey, attached a dollar bill to the survey, and based upon the zip codes and the addresses, stuffed mailboxes. The bottom line, unbelievable response rate back. Well, my 2nd year into the research, I didn't contact the Census Bureau. I walked down to the regional office on Peachtree Street, sat down with a couple of social scientists, hoping to gain some type of insight in terms of how many black millionaires out there. Well, forget zip codes, they didn't even know how many black millionaires in the United States. So I went over to the Federal Reserve, and they told me, they said, Doc, 2 ways you can go about this. You have about 111,000 African-American households with a net worth of $1 million or more, or you have 35,000 single individuals who are certifiable millionaires. And I said, well, give me the individuals. So I used 3 primary resource tools in my methodology. When I started out 7 years ago, I said no athletes and no entertainers. I didn't want any athletes, didn't want any entertainers. Now, I spoke to plenty of athletes. I spoke to the Denver Nuggets basketball team. I spoke to the St. Louis Rams football team. I've done my fair share with athletes, and I met all types of entertainers. Oh, man, Dr. Kimbro, please include me. And I said, why? No, I don't want to. Why? Because I'm after wealth, not income. Huge difference. It's not the money that you have, it's the money that you have left over. I'm not in the bling bling. I remember when I finally got a hold of Tyler Perry, and he said to me, he says, you see my plays? I said, yeah. He said, you see my movies? I said, yeah. He said, you notice I use the same actresses in my plays and movies over and over again. I said, yeah. He said, they look good. I said, yeah, Tyler, they look real good. He said, these women don't even have health insurance. That's what Tyler Perry told me. He said, they don't even have health insurance. It's all about looking good, spending. That's a sermon for another Sunday. This is not Sunday. And I got another message scheduled for that. So number one, I used a full-blown survey. I asked these black millionaires 118 questions. The survey was divided into 4 different factors. Number one, demographic. I said, though the federal government call you African American, are you really West Indian? Are you indigenous African? Second factor is number one, investment behavior. How many times a week or a month do you balance your checkbook? Who in your family balances your checkbook? Do you set a budget? Would you have a problem paying an unexpected $5,000 bill? The third factor is success factors. No, not success factors, buying behavior. Black millionaires aren't bling bling. You got $35,000 now, oh yeah, you might say, the only time they get bling bling, because I asked them, I said, you know, what's the most you ever paid for a suit? What's the most you ever paid for a watch? How many cars do you own? And I can give you all the data that you want. The average black millionaire in the United States is a 52-year-old male. Ladies, don't get upset, 19% female. In terms of college degree, in terms of SAT scores, they all broke 1,000 on the old version of the SAT. In terms of college GPA, black females 3.4, black males 2.9. 20% of them MBA, number one major in school, business. I can give you on and on and on. Appraised value of the house. They don't live in any mansions, no palatial mansions. Appraised value of the house, less than $300,000. They own 4 cars. If one's not a Mercedes, one will definitely be a Lexus, and the other 2 are domestic models. Men, in terms of their buying behavior, they're off the rack. Ladies, the number one brands, Coach, Chanel, Costco, Sam's Club. Now, ladies, they don't wear the Coach and the Chanel and the St. John knits to show everybody how they're doing. They only break out those knits when they're around their peer group. But the last question I asked them on that survey, question number 118, at what age were you when you broke 6 figures? At what age were you when you earned $100,000 a year or more? 99.9% of the time came back age 30. So I tell my students, be very careful where you are by age 30. Because if you're not careful, you might be there for the rest of your life. Be very careful where you are at age 30. So number one, I used a survey. Number 2, I held 6 focus groups around the country. And I started out the first focus group in the Raleigh-Durham area. And what do we know about Raleigh-Durham? That was Black Wall Street. In the 1920s, you had 2 versions of Black Wall Street. You had one in Raleigh-Durham, and you had another one out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I had 1 focus group in North Carolina. I had 3 in the Atlanta area. I had a huge focus group in Washington, D.C. And again, when I say focus group, if you weren't 7 figures, if you were an African American, and you were a certified millionaire, you didn't get in that room. The focus group I had in Washington, D.C., Bob Johnson, founder of BET, was in the room. Carla Harris, most powerful black woman on Wall Street, was in the room. The Roberts brothers, Michael and Stephen Roberts, they were in that room. I had another focus group in Omaha, Nebraska, and I had a real small focus group, nothing but black females out in Las Vegas. And then last but not least, now like I said no athletes, no entertainers, but when it came time, I had 50 to 60 interviews. Obviously, there were some folks I had to interview. So I interviewed Tyler Perry. I interviewed Steve Harvey. I interviewed Damon John of Shark Tank. I interviewed Antonio Reed, X Factor. I interviewed Tyrese Gibson. I interviewed Kirk Franklin. Might have been the last individual to interview Johnny Cochran. I interviewed Bishop T.D. Jakes. On and on and on, trying to wrap my arms and hands around this whole thing called wealth. Bottom line, there you are. So what can I tell you over a 7-year period, students? Wealth is not a function of circumstance. It's not a function of condition. It's not a function of race, paint job. It's not a function of gender. It's not a function of what side of the tracks you were born, who your parents are, how the cards were dealt. But it is a function of discipline. And it is a function of faith. And it is a function of belief. And it is a function of sacrifice. Those men and women who have won most in life have relied mostly on themselves. So I found 7 best practices, 7 competencies that these men and women adhere to. And again, that's Andy Young and Martin Luther King. And what did he say? So Dr. King and I, we integrated the lunch counter, we failed to integrate the dollar. And when he said that, my response was, well, Mr. Ambassador, how does anybody integrate the dollar? He said, somebody must give us the traits, the keys, the skills necessary in order to compete in a free market, open society. I found 7 laws of wealth, 7 best practices that all these men and women adhere to. And you can incorporate these best practices in your life, and that probably will make all the difference in the world. Number 1 law of wealth, knowledge. Prosperity begins in the mind, but ends in the purse. Begins in the mind, but ends in the purse. And I remember one of the focus groups I had, I asked one of the 7-figure types, and I said, so what's the key to financial prosperity? He said, outread the other guy. The average black millionaire almost reads a book a week. Did you hear what I said? The average black millionaire reads 3 books a month. Biographical, business, historical. There I am with Antonio Reed of Shark Tank, and I got his bio in front of me, and I said, Antonio, I can't believe you took 8 weeks out of your schedule to take an executive management course at Harvard. I said, you and Babyface made more money. If you lived 10 lifetimes, you couldn't spend all the millions that you made. What would motivate you to take 2 months out of your life to take that class at Harvard Business School? He says, well, everybody wants to get into this music business and entertainment business. The bottom line, it is a business. But number 2, I discovered a long time ago, the moment that you cease to grow and develop, you begin to die. You begin to die. So number 1 is knowledge. Take in the information. Anything can be learned. Be teachable. Grow, develop. Narrow your zone of ignorance. Find a way to be among the top 10%. And the easiest way to do that is taking the information. Be very particular who you associate with. Make sure you get around folks who are going to help you grow and develop. You got to get 3 types of friends, boys and girls. Number 1, you got to get 2-day friends. I was thinking, what the hell are you talking about, 2-day friends? That when you go to a conference with over a 2-day period, they motivate you, they inspire you. You can't help but to grow. You can't help but to believe I'm going to reach my goals, I'm going to reach my objectives. Then number 2, you got to get 2-hour friends. Somebody, maybe you got a best friend at work or a best friend at school. You know, you can hang out the better part of the day and you can talk about your dreams and your visions. And then last but not least, you got to get those 2-second friends. Those toxic, negative people always complaining, crying. They drag you down. They steal your dreams. So when you see them walking and they say, hey, you say bye. Because who you spend your time with is who you become. Who you spend your time with is who you become. Now I close out, I was telling Dr. Frankie, every year, the next 3 weeks, I close out my class with Take a Millionaire to Lunch. I bring a certified millionaire in and speak to my kids. They don't need to hear from me, they didn't hear from me all semester. Now you need to hear from somebody else. And the 3 speakers I have this year, I don't know if you saw her, she was on Shark Tank 2.5, 3 weeks ago. She was a CAU alum, her name is Erica Barrett. She came away with $100,000, she was on Shark Tank. She's one of the speakers. Another one of the speakers, you've probably seen him, maybe you saw him play basketball. Dikembe Mutombo, no. That Geico commercial. So take in the information. Number two, they made the second law of wealth. They made a conscious decision that they weren't going to be poor. They weren't going to be poor, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the conditions. Now, I told you there are 5 black billionaires in the United States, but you got 16 in Africa. There are 5 black billionaires in the United States, but there were at least 10 other individuals, if it weren't for the '07 recession, that they would have joined the ranks of billionaire status. I interviewed 3 of the 5 black billionaires. I interviewed Bob Johnson. Do you even know the 5 black billionaires? Come on, you got 700 here in the United States. All I'm saying is just give me the 5 black billionaires. And if you don't know, and I'm going to treat you like you were in my class at CAU, if you don't know, I need to know why you don't know. I need to know. Because I can go home, you can sit in my study, I'll give you the remote control, and you can stand right in front of my flat screens in my study, and you might find Bill Gates being interviewed. You might find Mark Zuckerberg being interviewed. You might find Chad Hurley, YouTube, being interviewed. Every year, Hollywood produces 500 movies, right? We just saw the Oscar. Every year, Hollywood produces 500 movies. YouTube does that every 28 minutes. You talk about you can't learn, you can't grow, you can't develop. Here across the world, here in the United States, you got 700 million. 700 million websites here in the United States. And you don't have one single website designed, definitely designed and created for the personal upliftment of black America. What is your number one website? WorldStarHipHop.com. You talking about ratchet on steroids, brother. WorldStarHipHop.com. BET 30 years ago. Booty shaking? WorldStarHipHop.com. 1.1 million hits per day. And you don't think that's having an effect on you. Scandal, NBA Wives, Atlanta Housewives. You don't think that's not affecting your subconscious. We're talking growth and development. That's what we're talking. I'm not saying you're superior to anybody, but no, better than what you used to be. They made a conscious decision that they weren't going to be poor. I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Victor McFarlane, and he was on par to be a billionaire, but the '07 recession knocked him down. His business, $600 million. As a matter of fact, the last time our president was in the Bay Area, San Francisco, he dined at McFarlane's house. And there I am interviewing Victor McFarlane, and he told me, when he told me that he was raised by a single parent in Middletown, Ohio, blue-collar working-class community, 1-bedroom apartment, and that bedroom was mama's. And he told me in the foyer area of that apartment was a couch. And for the first 12 years of his life, that couch substituted as a bed that he and his older sister slept on for the first 12 years of his life. And I said, damn, that had to be tough, man. It had to be rough. He cut me off and he said, Doc, I don't want any sympathy. I don't want any empathy. As a matter of fact, when I look back, that's probably the best 12 years of my life. I said, what do you mean? He said it was during that 12-year period, sleeping on that couch, I made a conscious decision that poverty would have no place in my life. Be done with it. Through with it. Baby, I don't care where you start. Everybody got to start someplace. Let this be your someplace. But you make a conscious decision. At the counter of success, there are no bargains. You must pay the price in advance and in full. So quit crying, quit moaning, quit complaining. Go ahead and pay the price and get it over with. Before your Lord and Savior was resurrected, he was crucified. Before you had a black president, you were enslaved. Before your mother gave birth to you, she was in labor. Pay the price and it's yours. Number 3, they believed in themselves when no one else will. And I got samples of some of the folks right there. They believed in themselves when no one else will. Faith. Now there's 2 types of faith. There's faith in self and there's faith in others. These individuals, if they were going to bet the farm, they bet the farm on themselves. So there I am with Damon John. And I said, Damon, what was the defining moment in your life? And as you know, Damon John created Boo Foo. I did not say Boo Boo. I said Boo Foo. That was the original name of his apparel line. By us, for us. He changed it at the last minute. So I said, what was the defining moment in your life? He said, when I had to burn the furniture. I said, translate, burn the furniture. What are you talking about? He said, when I finally got financing from Samsung, I went out and I hired all these seamstresses, and they showed up at my mother's house. I had no place to put their equipment. So I took all the furniture in my mother's house, put it in the backyard, set it on fire. Okay. There I am, Kathy Hughes, one of your 5 black billionaires. I spent 2 days with Kathy Hughes. When she finally got financing to buy her first radio station, that restroom down at the end of the corridor, well, that was the bathroom that she and her son bathed in every day. Why? Because she slept on the floor for 1 year in that radio station. Look at girlfriend now. I asked Tyler Perry, I said, Tyler, how in God's name did you go from sleeping in your car in New Orleans and sleeping in your car in Atlanta, Georgia, to building a $145 million production studio? What did that man tell me? Nothing but the grace of God. What's the first handout I give my students? Business students. What's the first handout I give my business students first day of class after I give them the syllabus? I give them the 4 greatest prayers. And I always get 1 or 2, Dr. Kimbro. What does this got to do with business? I said, not a damn thing. But it's got everything to do with your success in life, because I don't care whether you're going to be a corporate climber or entrepreneur, somebody's going to knock you down. And when they knock you down and you get on your knees, here's food for the journey. The 4 greatest prayers. Now, I'm a 63-year-old black male. And in my lifetime, the 2 greatest presentations, with all due respect to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and Sermon on the Mount, the 2 greatest presentations these eyeballs have seen. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech in 1963, and Steve Jobs' introduction of the iPhone in 2007. And they both use the same format. Now, you're going to get some presentations in your career, right? This is the format. Number 1, tell them how it is, but not worse. In other words, confront the brutal fact. Tell them how it is, but not worse. And what did Martin Luther King say? This country has written the black man a check that came back insufficient funds. What does Steve Jobs have to say? I know you're carrying 50 million devices on you. You got your Palm Pilot, you got your phone, you got your camera, you got your blah, blah, blah. Tell them how it is, but not worse. Number 2, tell them how it can be. Martin Luther King wrote us a check that came back insufficient funds, but I had a dream that this country will finally live up to its creed and judge us by the character, not the color of our skin. Steve Jobs, my designers have come up with this new device now that's going to make life so much easy for you. And then number 3, make it that way. Tell me how it is, but not worse. Tell me how it can be. And number 3, make it that way. Introducing the iPhone. I had a dream that my 4 children will sit at the table of brotherhood and sisterhood with former slaves and slave owners' children and blah, blah, blah. When you give a presentation, Business Communication 101, 10, 20, 30. 10, only use 10 slides. 20, 20-point font. 30, you only got 30 minutes, baby. Doesn't take much for you to get your point across. You only got 30 minutes, in and out. So it's all about faith. Number 4, focus on your unique skills. The 4th law of wealth, they only focus on the unique skills. They only focus on their area of excellence. There I am, Bishop T.D. Jakes, and I'm in his book line study in Clemson University. I'm in this man's study, and I'm looking at every book on God's green earth you'd ever want to read, examine, study in your life. And what do we know about Bishop T.D. Jakes? Number 1, they told him he would never make it in the ministry. Why? He's got a heavy list. If you listen close, you can hear a list. Number two, he's a high school dropout. Yeah, he went back to get his GED, but the man never finished high school. Number three, they darn near ran him out of Charleston, West Virginia with only 8 members. But students fast forward the videotape and look at him now. 191,000 square foot facility, $45 million, 30,000 member mega church. And here I am in a study and bam, all of a sudden the bishop comes in. And I said, Bishop, I'm not getting on that plane and flying back to Atlanta until we talk about wealth and prosperity. I said, you know, your critics said that you weren't going to make it in the ministry. And he said, well, my critics aren't altogether wrong. If you listen closely, you can hear the list. Then he said, I don't care if I had to spit, I don't care if I had to stutter, I don't care if I had to stammer, I had something to say, and I was going to say it. I said, well, Bishop, I'm all ears, tell me. He said, give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, feed him for a lifetime. But show him how he can buy the pond and no one in his family will ever know struggle. I'm not telling you to buy the pond. All I'm saying is consider buying the pond. That's all. They focus on their unique skills and traits. They focused on their area of excellence. Do you even know your area of excellence? Do you even know why the Lord took time out of his busy schedule to blow breath into your lungs? We're all here for a purpose. I didn't choose to be here. Baby doll, you didn't choose to be here. The bottom line, we were chosen. We were chosen for this particular time and place. Now, I use case study method in my class, and I always ask some probing questions. One of the questions I love to ask my students, if you didn't show up at this particular time and place, what would the world miss? If I didn't show up, you're going to miss a lot. You're going to miss a lot. So what is your area of excellence? You live in a country that rewards differentiation. What is so different and unique about you? Yeah, 2 Chainz was right. I'm different. Yeah, I'm different. I don't know about you. I listen to 2 Chainz. Can I get some dap for 2 Chainz? Oh, I got a PhD, but come on, give me a little credit, man. Oh. Yeah, you are different. So describe you in 15 words or less. Describe you in 10 words or less. Describe you in 5 words or less. What is one word that describes you? Give me 3 positive traits that 2 people will say about you when you're not in the room. Because sometime in life, that's going to be the direction of your life. You won't be in the room, and 2 other individuals will be talking about you when you're not in the room. So what is different and unique about you? Now there's 3 questions you got to ask yourself in order to find your area of excellence. Number 1, what do I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul into? Question number 2, what would you do for free? If no one ever paid you a dime, if no one ever gave you financial remuneration, what would you do for free? Because so many times I couldn't tell when these individuals were working or playing. When you're doing what you love to do, your work is your play. And if your work is your play, you'll never work a day in your life. I remember years ago when I interviewed John Johnson, the founder of Ebony magazine. And there I am in his Chicago office. And he had a mock cover of an upcoming issue right before him. And I said to him, I said, Mr. Johnson, if you weren't publishing Ebony, what would you be doing? He picked up the mock cover and he went just like this. I love magazines. I love the color. I love the textures. I love how they feel. How in the world are you going to beat somebody like that? How in the world are you going to beat someone like that? They know their area of excellence. And then last but not least, if you can't answer those 2 questions, go to somebody who you respect and admire and ask him, what do you see me as? What do you think I would be good at doing? In other words, Michael Porter. And I remember years ago when I sat in Michael Porter's class at Harvard, competitive advantage. What is your area of unfair competitive advantage? What do you do so effortlessly? Because when you're doing it, 2 things, when you are the best at what you do. Number 1, you never have to worry about income. And number 2, the marketplace will always seek you out. You never have to worry about when you are the best. Business students, marketing 101 is called top of mind status. Now, Kimbro, what the hell is top of mind status? What's the first thing you think of when you think of a hotel? I think of Ritz-Carlton. I think of Four Seasons. What's the first thing you think of when you think of car? I think of BMW. I think of Mercedes-Benz. I think of Lexus. What's the first thing you do when you think of a sports team? I think of Clemson Tigers, New York Yankees, Notre Dame, Boomer, Oklahoma. Undergrad. Had to throw that in. Had to throw that in. Had to throw that in. Top of mind status. Seek top of mind status. I don't care going in the Kroger, going in the Food Lion, going in the ShopRite, going in the Publix, going in the Harris Tweet. I don't care where you go down the breakfast cereal aisle. And what's the first thing you notice? 40 different variations of breakfast cereal. Fruit Loops, Raisin Bran, Cocoa Puffs, Special K. What is the package? What is the breakfast cereal that says by me? You gotta apply the same thing to you. What is the package that says vibrant, energetic? What is the package that says, man, I'm gonna ride in on the white horse and save the day? Different and unique. Number 5, excellent sales skills, service. They focus on serving their fellow man, their community. You gotta serve somebody, baby girl. And write this down just in case you never see it again in life. Q plus MA equals C. The quality of your service plus the quality of your service plus the quantity of your service plus the mental attitude in which it is rendered always equals compensation. Always equals compensation. Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. And I tell my students all the time, I'm here to serve you. Students, you're the customer. You are the customer. I tell my students all the time, yeah, I know you're a business student. I know you're a business student from New York. I know you're a business student from New York with your concentration in supply chain. I know you're a business student from New York with a concentration in supply chain. But beneath it all, you're somebody's child. We're here to serve. Like I said, I'm 63 years old. How long do you think I'm going to be here? My job is to pass that baton, to serve, uplift. See, you take your economics, you know there's an economic theory called what? Economics of scale. In other words, the same dollar that you can take to go to Clemson, you can take that same dollar and go home. Same dollar. Bottom line can't be the drop. Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. A happy customer tells 5 of his friends. A dissatisfied customer tells 15 of his friends. Entrepreneurs, if you were met with a customer complaint, the worst thing in the world you can do is let that customer walk out that door without solving that complaint. Why? It's not me, University of Michigan School of Business Consumer Behavior Report. It takes 19 times the money, the capital, the effort, the resources to win a customer's favor in the future as it is to keep an existing customer. Coming down the home stretch, number 5 is service. Number 6, got to be in business for yourself. Got to be in business for yourself. Thou shalt own thy own business. Got to be in business for yourself. And there's so many different examples right there. You can't see her right there. Great interview, Trish DeZico. Remember, who in the world is Trish DeZico? Here's a black woman graduated from Monmouth College back in New Jersey, one of the first with a computer science degree. Loves California, wanted to leave Jersey, go out to California. She had a firm offer in hand from IBM. She turned IBM down. All her friends and family says, girl, you go out to California and you hook up with one of those .coms, one of those technology companies, you're going to be unemployed in 60 days. You're going to be right back here in New Jersey. You need to take this job with IBM. Well, she did. And she went out to California. She was at Silicon Valley and she was hired by Microsoft. And we're going back to the 1980s. Bill Gates only had 3,100 employees. Only 40 were black. And they were right. Gates couldn't pay her what she was worth, and Gates worked the doo-doo out of her. She was working 60, 70-hour work weeks. But after 4 years, he gave him stock options, and one day after 4 years, the stock split. Less than a month later, it split again. Then it starts splitting a couple times a week. Then it starts splitting every day. And there she was, 5 to 6 years at Microsoft. She goes to her little cubicle and she finds herself standing in a pool of liquid gold she casts out as a Microsoft millionaire. Trish DeZico, great interview with her. I'm not, like I said, hey, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you better think entrepreneurial. You see, this marketplace today, 2 qualities you've got to have, students. Number 1, you've got to be creative. This morning I took a shower, got 50 million different ideas in the shower. Creative, the ability to come up with ideas. But number 2, you got to be innovative, baby. What is innovation? The ability to execute that idea. In today's marketplace, anybody can see down the street, but they want somebody now who can see around the corner. Now I can walk down Peachtree Street and I can see all the latest fashions. Oh, there are kids are wearing the skinny jeans and they got the Beats headphones on and everything. See, I can spot a trend. But do you possess the ability to see around the corner? Can you seize the trend? And then last but not least, number 7, make thy money grow. Make thy money grow. The wealth choice is not your basic business book. I tell people all the time, this book is not about cash. This book is about courage. It takes courage to chase your dream. And what do we know about dreams? Students, graduate students, hotshot, know-it-all graduate students. The average individual in our society gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if you have the guts, the courage, the fortitude to chase your dream, will make you financially independent. But what do? You dismiss it. You dismiss it. Now I'm going to give you 2 keys not to dismiss your dream. Number 1, don't you ever lower your standards. Don't you ever lower your standards. And don't you allow anybody to lower standards on your behalf. And number 2, get rid of the self-limiting beliefs. Get rid of them. Dump them. This book is not about cash, it's about courage. It takes courage to save 10% of everything that you earn. It takes courage for you to find a new set of friends because your personal associates don't empower you. And it takes courage to believe in yourself when no one else will. Somebody said it couldn't be done, but he was the chuckle reply that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face to be worried he did it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Somebody scoffed, you'll never do that, at least no one ever has done it. But he took off his coat and he took off his hat, and the first thing we know, he begun. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit, he started to sing as he tackled the thing. That couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you could not be done. There are thousands to prophecy failure. There are thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But with a lift of your chin and a bit of your grin, you just take off your coat and go to it. You started to sing as you tackled the thing. Spit in his face, I'll show you Marcus Garvey. Slammed the school door in the